page 152 now. Then, after flashing past station after station of the suburbs, the train whistled one last whistle, shrieked with the last torturous pull at the brakes, and puffing, panting, sighing hoarsely as if it were a dead beat, came to a standstill by an outlying platform of the huge Victoria station. Munnu looked out uneasily at the empty trucks of goods train which stood on the offside of the platform. Should he wait for the elephant driver to come, or should he run towards the godown, at whose large doors some coolies pushed bales of merchandise and through which it seemed possible to escape into the streets? "Come, brother, you have reached the land of your heart's desire," said the pockmarked black elephant driver. "This train will soon go to Ballard Pyre, where we mount the ship that is to carry us across the black waters to Vilayat. Here is some food. Come, I will show you a way by which you may get out of the station unnoticed." Munnu jumped down. Now that he was face to face with the man who had been good to him, he could not even thank him. Instead, he felt embarrassed and wanted to get away from him as soon as possible. He followed him. "The bigger a city is, the more cruel it is to the sons of Adam," the elephant driver said, crawling under the buffers of a train. "You have to pay even for the breath that you breathe, but you are a brave lad." They had reached the godown. "Go through there as if you were an ordinary person. God be with you." Munnu looked up to the man. The ugly face was a mask. The boy walked on as he was told, the bottom of his heart breaking with the weight of gratitude and fear. When he looked round, he had walked into a square. Munnu emerged from the Victoria station. Before him was Bombay, strange, hybrid, complex, cosmopolitan Bombay, in whose streets, end of page 152, now page 153, purple-faced Europeans in immaculate suits, boots and basket hats rubbed shoulders with the long-nosed Parsis dressed in frock coats, white trousers, dome-like mitres in which eagle-eyed Mohammedans with the baggy trousers, long tunics and fezzes mingled with sleek Hindus clothed in muslin shirts. Hindus clothed in muslin shirts, dhotis and black boat-like caps in which the saris of Parsi women vied with the colourful loads of the garments of rich Hindu women and put to shame the plain white veils of Parda women and the flimsy frocks of masculine European women, in which electric motor horns, foot-footed Victoria and tram bells tinkled tinga-linga-ling, in which was the press of many races whom Munnu vaguely knew as Arabs and Persians and Chinaman, and the babble of many tongues which he did not know at all. He stared at this confused medley of colors and shapes and sizes, heard varied sounds, and smelt a smell different from all the perfumes, aromas and stinks he had ever smelt. The mixed smell of damp and sticky sweat, dust and heat, musk and garlic, incense and dung. He lost both the balance in his step and the silent determination of his soul to go onwards. He hurried towards a quiet pavement. He looked around to measure the strength of his frame against the world. The huge domes and the minarets of the General Post Office on his right, the vast domes and minarets of the railway station on his left, the great domes and the minarets of the university and law courts beyond, all vying with each other to proclaim the self-conscious heights attained by their Gothic Mughal architecture, challenged him to decide which of them was the most splendorous not knowing in their vanity that he was only a modest hill boy, impetuously impelled by every big building to believe that it would be great, and easily daunted by such grandeur into believing himself completely insignificant and small. Oppressed and overcast, the boy walked along the square, wiping streams of sweat off his face, till he sighted a bench at the foot of a marble statue of the short, stocky, broad-bottomed Victoria, with a scroll in her hands and a crown on her head, on which a blue-black crow cawed defiance to the world as it danced and fluttered after relieving itself. He sank into a corner of the bench. And withdrawing his gaze from the street, where a mixed crowd awaited for the wondrous tram car which came rolling on wheels, unpropelled by anything. End of page number 153. Now page number 154. He sought to collect himself and to partake of the food which the elephant driver had given him. He opened the packet of sweets in his hand and contemplated first the yellow color of the bundi, the chocolate of the rasgullas, and the white of the cream cakes. His mouth watered. They were delicious, but there was an empty space in his belly. He ate mouthfuls, ruining the taste of the food. He could not swallow it fast enough. Only when one cream cake lay in the leaf bag in his hand, he felt thirsty and looked aside to see if there was a pump where he could go and drink water. Hardly had his gaze been diverted when the crow which sat on Queen Victoria's head swooped down and carried the bag out of the boy's unconscious hands and threw it on the pavement. Munnu came back to himself with a half-amused, half-chagrined smile and cursed, "Son of a thief!" Just then a swarm of crows came soaring over his head and, cawing brazenly, fell on the sweets which had dropped out of the bag on the pavement and fluttered back to their eminent shelter on Queen Victoria's head, in her arms and round her large proportions. Munnu got up, confused, and straining not to attract anybody's notice, thought to himself, "The son of a thief must have known that I wouldn't pick up food from the pavement where the shoes have been, and so he waited till I wasn't looking. The cunning bastard." He walked down the pavement, which was punctuated almost at every step by some person or the other. There was here an old astrologer with the intricate caste marks of priesthood painted on his forehead, a white flowing beard, and a fat body immaculately clothed in long muslin robes, telling the fortune of a Gujarati clerk. There was next a Mohammedan barber with his razors and cuticles spread before him, looking into a large dressing table mirror as he puffed at his hubble bubble while waiting for customers. There was further a bookseller displaying books and magazines with the colored picture of beautiful European women on them, and some pamphlets which proclaimed the secrets and mysteries of sex in bold Hindustani letters. There was a fruit seller further ahead and a sweetmeat seller at the edge of the footpath in a corner. End of page 154. Now page 155. A coolie lay huddled, pillowing his head on his arm, shrinking into himself as if he were afraid to occupy too much space. Munnu's heart sank at the recognition of a labourer lying about thus precariously. So even here the coolies sleep in the streets, he suddenly realized, and the memory of the words of the coolie who had said that money was strewn about the streets of Bombay sounded falsely hollow in his brain. His throat was parched and dry with thirst. His limbs sagged. Before his mind's eye arose the grim fear of the night, coming and finding him alone and friendless in the streets. He tried to forget the oppressive thought. His brain became a blank and the picture faded out. He had come to the edge of the four roads, alongside which stretched avenues of tall, massive, stately edifices, 8 stories high, just like those in the bazaar of the civil lines at Daulatpur, except that they seemed to continue for miles and miles. He stood riveted to the spot for a moment, not knowing where to go and not daring to cross into the boulevards of civilization. Then he saw men walking up and down the pavements of the roads casually, among them even a few coolies with tunics much dirtier than his own, and he walked on. He braved it and ran hurriedly past the raised arms of a black policeman who wore a blue and yellow uniform different from the up-country constables. Bare-legged, his cap tilted nattily to one side. His heart beat wildly as he slowed down by the polished brass plates round the door lintels of the gates of a big building on which were engraved black letters of the English alphabet, Cox & Co. He read on one of them and he felt pleased with the strange connection that seemed to have established between him and the world of Sahib Logs. He recalled, however, the rude way in which the Englishwoman in Daulatpur civil lines had spoken to him, and he was again half afraid to go on. But there were plenty of Indians walking down the streets and only a few pink-faced men. So he went on, only he felt more thirsty than ever now, and as he walked, he scanned the length of the bazaar to see if there was a charity water stall here like those in Daulatpur. The huge glass windows of a furniture shops followed upon the long portals of an office or the mysterious flight of steps of a bank, but there was no well or pump where he could get water. At length he sighted a huge canvas lining behind glass doors. End of page number 155. Now page number 156. Now rows of coloured soda water bottles, and beyond the window some people who sat on Angrezi chairs by marble tables, eating and drinking and chatting. He had once drunk soda water while on an errand in the streets of Daulatpur at the shop of Bali, the ice seller. He felt he would like to drink a bottle now, but the clothes of the people who sat in the shop, as he saw them from the wide open door, were clean. They looked to be rich babus or merchants, and he felt he was the only dirty coolie. But a bottle of soda only costs an anna, and I have a rupee tied up in the end of my loincloth. I can go and buy one, he told himself. He almost stumbled on the doorstep as with heavy feet and light heart he walked in and stood blind and uncertain in the commodious restaurant. He tried to steady himself and felt everyone was looking at him. He sat down on a chair by an empty table that stood on his right. He felt he was floating in the air, so rapidly did his brain wheel round and round with confusion and embarrassment. He brushed his arms across his forehead to calm himself and to wipe off the sweat. He brazened himself into self-assurance and glanced at the people pouring hot tea from their cups into saucers and sipping it with spattering sip. Hardly had he withdrawn his gaze from the queer people when a tall man in muslin, with his hair profusely oiled and parted in the middle, came up to him and said, "Coolie?" "Yes," Munnu confessed, his heart almost missing a beat. "Sit down on the floor there." "What do you want?" the man said insolently. Munnu got up from the chair lamely and settled down on the cemented floor full of fear and without saying a word. "What do you want?" the man said. "A bottle of soda water." Some of the men who were spattering at the tea in their saucers looked at him as if he were a leper, and the waiter winked at them a significant glance, half in mockery at the coolie who indulged in soda water and half in contempt. Munnu felt wild with rage, but tried to still his mind by acknowledging the superiority of the clean-clothed rich people whom he had always been told to respect. Feeling that all the men in the place were staring at him, he looked away into the street and through the glass window. Give me the money, 2 annas," the man shouted, almost at the top of Munnu's head suddenly. End of page 156. Now page 157. Munnu started. Then, with head bent and conscious of the stares of everyone, he loosened the knot in his loincloth and handed over the silver rupee to the waiter. The man fetched a glass of green-coloured frothing soda water from a high stand and gave it to Munnu. Then he counted 14 annas change on Munnu's palm. The sharp, cool, sweetish taste of the soda water tingled in Munnu's mouth and brought tears of acid into his eyes. He could have liked to have sipped it slowly and enjoyed the full flavour of the drink in comfort, but he was nervous and feeling extremely guilty for having intruded into the rich man's world. So he gulped the water down as fast as he could, and placing the glass in a corner, he made to go. The aerated liquid had an instantaneous effect on his belly, and he belched in spite of himself. "Go away," the man shouted behind him. Munnu darted as if to save his life. When he had reached 100 yards or so, he looked back. The man was not following him, but he was terror-stricken, looking furtively this side and that. Fore and aft he slunk away, cursing himself for having gone into a shop like that. He felt he had wasted his money. The man's nastiness had left such a bitter taste in his mouth. "I was so thirsty, though," he said to console himself, "and now I know I am no longer thirsty." He belched again, and his spontaneous confirmation of his thoughts by his belly made him laugh. "I should have fought hard if he had dared to turn me out or abuse me," he said to himself. "I let him put me in my place as a coolie, but I was paying for the soda water, and I am not an untouchable. I am a Hindu Kshatriya, a Rajput, a warrior." He felt strong and powerful at the thought of being of the warrior caste, strong and happy. His dignity coming back to them, and he walked on elated and unconscious, exercising his rudimentary stare on a huge, wonderful coloured picture of Madame Dietrich, which stared down at him, her large eyes and long lashes seductively askance, her milk-white body naked, save for a pearl bodice and a pearl loincloth. Lest the pleasure of contemplating so beautiful a vision be forbidden to a coolie, he arrested his ardent gaze, looked round surreptitiously to see that no one was noticing him, and was going to move into a position from where he could have commanded a clearer and more detailed view of the form that had now started end of page 157, now page 158. Wild movement in his blood, when he suddenly heard the loud bellowing of a raucous Raucous, raucous motor horns, the tan of tramway bells the angry yells of frightened drivers and shouts of "Dem fool, black man, where are you going?" He stood dumb and still in the deathliest fear of having got into the way of the traffic. He felt as if he were dead or dying, but then a sudden impulse for life made him turn quickly on his face. He saw that he was quite safe, but that on the other side of the pavement a scantily clad small dark man with grey hair and bowed legs loaded with bundles was dragging a half-loaded woman at a loaded woman who was dragging a boy, while a frightened little girl shrieked in the middle of the road behind them. With one of those sudden impulses that arose too often in his wild blood, he rushed into the road where the terror-stricken child stood sandwiched between the dangerous streams of traffic, and lifting her under his arm, ran across to where the helpless family fussily muttered curses and prayed to the Lord. "Oh, may you live long, my son," the woman wailed, joining her hands to Munnu and eagerly receiving her daughter into a warm embrace. Then she addressed her husband. "What a place to bring us to!" "Keep quiet, woman, you nearly killed my children," said her husband. "You should have held them. You left me there on the road and crossed to safety yourself." "Wah, strange father you are," she spluttered. "Be patient, mother, be patient," said Munnu, assuming an air of grave final piety for a moment. "Brother," the old man said, patting Munnu's back and then joining his hands to him in supplication and gratitude, "that little witch would have been killed if you had not run to save her. These machines are like devils." "You have so much to carry," said Munnu. "Where have you to go? I will help you with the load." "I worked at the Sidrabite George White cotton factory 6 months ago before I went to fetch my family from the village," said the old man. "I will go there in the morning and look for work again. Now I go into the city where there may be a corner outside a closed shop or a pavement where we can rest for the night. We are poor folk. Now we will be going our way. Ram Ram." And he made to go. End of page 158, now page 159. "Brother," said Munnu eagerly, "I am a newcomer to Bombay and I want a job too. In your thought, do you think it will be possible for me to get a job at the factory where you work? I am a coolie. I come from up country." "Ah, yes, do come, brother," said the old man. "If you can sleep the night with us, we can all go together to the factory in the morning, and then I will present you to the big Mistry Sahib, and we can take a hut near the meal, and you can lodge with us." "Yes, brother, that is what I want," said Munnu, trying to instill as much seriousness into his tone as possible. They walked away from where the vast masses of western big business houses and the domed splendor of great buildings cast expressive shadows, and passing by a playing field, entered the coloured eastern corner of Gurgaon.